Today we'll be executing more of our design plan by wiring up our sensors and encapsulating it in braided sleeving. Alright, so it's a week later from last time I worked on this, and for me, doing 50 other million things at work and then coming back to this and going, okay, what was I doing? It takes me a while to get acclimated. But in the meantime, last weekend I ordered a bunch of stuff. And so ordered a second water temp gauge. I got a pigtail of the water temp gauge and also the oil pressure sensor. And because I'm gonna just wire this stuff up straight to the gauges that came with the car, instead of removing all the gauges and doing a CAN bus off my computer and all that stuff. I mean, if I would have known that originally, but I don't know if you guys remember, I was going to originally use my LS computer, and then I switched to a Holley Terminator X, and what I didn't know is a Holley Terminator X has a CAN bus output on it that you could use to go straight to your gauges. But, I've already cut my holes for the gauges, and it's only two things that I need to tap off of this to get into the system. And so instead of redoing anything and spending $1,500 on new gauges and all that stuff, I'm like, I'll just spend $5 and do that. So that's kind of what I'm doing. So the other thing that switched on me was, you probably remember I made a kind of like a CAD drawing of what my center console punch outs are going to be for all my different switches and stuff. And I was originally thinking it would be really nice to do all these nice fancy buttons that glow and all this stuff. And then I was like, you know what? These, up and down window buttons that come with the car, they look fine and they light up, and I'll just put that, in, and, again, I'm trying to save money because every $20, next thing you know, it's $1,000, and then it's $3,000, and you could just literally go nuts. And but I was talking to my buddy Greg, who again has built a few of these, and I was talking about his trailer. It was just kind of a different conversation, and I was talking about his trailer, and he goes, well, the trailer that I have, I can't get out of the car because the door will hit the fender well of the trailer. He goes, so I have to have a wireless remote to roll down my windows. And I was going to do all that stuff too to my car, and I'm like, you know what? All these extra relays, and I don't have space, like, screw it, I'm not going to do that stuff. And then he mentioned that, and I'm like, all right, there might be a situation where I need to get into this car, and it'd be nice to just hit a button and the window opens up and I could, get in and out or whatever, just even for like security issues or whatever. And, for these shaved doors, it's always nice to have some kind of hidden component to pop a door. But we're talking about, you can't open up the door. You can only open up the window. And so it started bringing up some things where I'm like, well, I could put a switch in the trunk that would roll down a window or something like that. And then I'm like, if I'm going to go through the trouble of doing all that, it's no different than putting it on the wireless remote. So, why am I wasting my time? So to do a wireless up and down on a motor, you have to use 2 relays. So that means 2 relays per door. So now you got 4 extra relays. Well, I didn't want to screw around with that. And so I found that they make a reversing all-in-one relay that will do everything in one box instead of having 2 boxes with 5 wires on each, so a total of 10 wires. So now what I have is just, and they're not in yet, I just ordered them, is you have a motor control, so you got 2 wires of that, and then you have 3 wires that go out to a switch. And so one is to switch it to go up, and one is to switch it to go down, but the middle wire is the ground. And so it's just a grounding switch configuration. Well, in that scenario, with the buttons that came with the car, I can't get them to do exactly what I need to do and also light up because they use that ground as the LED connection to turn on the LEDs. So there was no, it's like a double pull, double throw, and there was no way to get it to where I could ground and turn on the LED, but also use the ground to actually switch the up and down on these relays. So that ended up me buying all new switches, long story short. And each switch now has a pigtail coming off of it. So I got 4 of these now. I got 2 buttons to go up and 2 buttons to go down. I have 2 different color LEDs. So I think I'm going to do white on top and blue on the bottom because they're different functions. And so what's cool about this is I only need to hook 3 wires up, you know, a ground and then switch for one. Well, actually 2 wires, just 2 wires of this. Ground switch for one, ground switch for the other button, and then a positive negative for the LED to turn on the button. So it's going to make my life a little simpler. So now that I ordered all this stuff and it came in, I need to kind of see, you know, am I going to stuff everything up here, or am I just going to run wires back and have relays sitting on that ledge there? You know, because you can see like there's the wires to the window. And I also have relays that need to control the door poppers that need to go inside the doors. And so I think it might be neater to run a multi-pin cable all the way back and have some of the relays behind the wall there than try to take a bunch of relays and stuff it up in the front of the car. And so that's kind of what I'm going to do today right now is wrap my head around this a little bit and see how I want to do stuff. And in the meantime, get into the mood by, you know, actually wiring up these little sensors and getting those going. It kind of takes me a while to ramp back up into this after a 60-hour week at work. So that's what I'm going to start doing. So as I'm locating the wire for the oil pressure gauge, you can see that there's a orange wire there. Now, to give you an idea what's going on, is this sensor has 3 wires. One is ground, one is 5 volts, one is the actual signal sensor. So what I did is I traced on the Holley diagram of what that wire is, and of course it matches up with a 5-volt reference that's orange, and it's actually connected to a few sensors that I'm not going to be using. And so I verified that, and then I followed this chunk back here because you could see that there's some orange wires right there, right? It's going back there. So then if I come in here, and I open up this one right here, which is going to be hard to do, but if I open it up, you can see right there, there is an orange wire. And so I'm going to actually tap that wire because it's a 5-volt reference. And I was like, man, do I really have to get a regulator from 12 to 5 volts and all that stuff? No, I'm just going to tap the wire because it's already built in and go from there. So that's what we're going to try to do. Not sure I could actually film that because it's such a tight space, but that's what we're doing. All right, so I was going through my list of things that need to be connected, and as I just did, I connected my my water temp. Actually, the water temp I bought doesn't fit the hole. I got to get a different one. But I got the water temp in. I got the oil sensor in, right? So I'm working on all the different things I got to do: water temp, oil pressure, RPM, speed, and then I have a volt meter, on the dash. And I wanted to verify. I'm like, well, where's that wire to connect that to make sure that's in, or is it already built in the harness? And so I was looking through this list of words, and I didn't see anything that looked like volts. So I'll show you how I found it. So you go to the actual harness for the actual gauges, and you see there's volts, and that's brown gauge feet. So trace the wire, it goes over to the harness. Okay. So now we go over to the harness and we go, there's the brown gauge feet. So now we follow that and go all the way up, and it goes into my fuse box. So that means that's already permanently wired and I don't have to worry about it. So therefore I cross it out. So at this point, all my gauges are wired and ready to go into the harness. I am done with that part of the process. So the next part of the process that I'm doing is all these little dots are stuff that I've finished. And the one thing that I haven't finished is the 12 volts, the switch 12 volts, and the ground, things like that. And so I have them for all these different things. So what I have to do is kind of reacclimate myself. I got powers and grounds laying here, a bunch of power wires laying here. And so I have to get that all figured out. And I'm going to try to use a little block like this to have, let's say ground, hot, switched hot, maybe another like heater hot or something like that. Not a heater, but like wipers. I'm not using the wipers. And so that gives me its own fused line in the fuse box. So I'm going to have a few different things here that I could tap off of, which I could use for all these different things that I need to connect. And then I also have my courtesy lights and things like that. So some of these wires are going to actually power this grid and then distribute throughout the car. So I think that's my next thing I'm going to tackle. And then once I do that, then I'm going to kind of look at how I'm going to wire up the windows and the doors and the relays and all that kind of stuff. But so far so good. It's going pretty well. And in fact, I just remembered I got to still do the air conditioning stuff. But man, I can't believe how far I've come from 2 weeks ago, where I was just racking my head and couldn't figure any of this stuff out because it was just too much. I was taking 5 or 6 manuals and putting it into one. And so it took a while to get to where I needed to go before it all started making sense. And making these charts is what really helped. Just listing out everything that needed to be done. And therefore I could systematically look at the whole thing and see what's going on. And then of course you see this rat's nest. And I just slowly started taking stuff out and taking some wires out. And, like right here, I coiled up these wires where when I finally, finish the car, I'm going to cut those and put them to where it needs to go permanently. But right now there's certain things that I'm just a little shy on permanently doing. And there's some stuff that I'm using connectors for that later on I'll probably cut out and just solder it together. But once I have everything packed nicely and neat and I have all my insulation in, and whether I do lizard skin or any of that kind of stuff. So that's where we're at.